Thank you, and welcome to the Child Welfare Information Technology Systems Managers and Staff webinar series brought to you on behalf of the Health and Human Services Administration for Children and Families, Children's Bureau, and presented by ICF International. Today's webinar features staff from Indiana and Ohio who will discuss their experiences and challenges in developing and implementing Genogram or family relationship diagram functionality. I'm Joyce Rose, your host and facilitator for today's webinar. Next slide, please. Attendees are encouraged to participate in the webinar with questions or comments. All of the participant lines are muted now, but we will open them for the Q&A session at the end of the discussion. However, please be aware that you can submit questions at any time using the GoToWebinar chat feature, and those will be queued up and addressed during the standard Q&A session. Once today's webinar has ended, you may submit additional questions to the email address listed above or to your federal analyst.
If you have any questions, please email ccwis.questions@acf.hhs.gov.
Next slide, please. I want to thank our participants from Indiana and Ohio for their exceptional time and effort in preparing for this webinar. So let's meet them, starting with Indiana. Latrice?
Hello, I'm Latrice Thompson, and I'm the Deputy Director of Staff Development.
Hi, I'm Mary Engel. I'm the Assistant Director for IU's Training Partnership.
My name is Whitney Ortiz. I'm a peer coach consultant in Indiana.
Ohio?
Kevin Bullock, Bureau Chief for the Bureau of Automated Systems here at the Ohio Department of Job and Family Services.
Hi, this is Melissa Palmer. I'm one of the business analysts here with the Ohio SACWIS Project.
And this is Michelle Lytle. I'm also a SACWIS business analyst.
Thank you, thank you. And next slide, please. So just to review our agenda quickly, we will be listening to the Indiana Department of Child Services, who will explain the use of the Genogram Pro software and its applicability for child welfare practice in Indiana. And then we'll follow the Ohio journey, which will address their implementation of Genogram functionality, and their session will include a live system demo. So how about the Indiana team get started? Latrice?
Yes. Hello. So in this section, we are going to explain how the Indiana Department of Child Services uses the Genogram Pro software and its applicability for child welfare practice in Indiana. The Genogram Pro is a genealogy mapping software. Genogram Pro is intuitively easy to learn and simple to use. Since 2009, Indiana has used this tool to develop comprehensive family network diagrams. So the family network diagram combines the genogram and an eco-map to identify a family's relationships as well as families' community connections. These diagrams are completed by the family case manager and the family. In general, the family case manager uses the family network diagram just to gather that useful information, have a better understanding of what the relational dynamics are within the family and any sort of behavioral problems within that network. It also promotes the client's self-understanding. It helps with conducting assessments and establishing interventions. So here is an example of the family network diagram from Genogram Pro. So Genogram Pro allows the user to clearly analyze the family's emotional and social relationships within that family group. Genogram Pro also generates a key that helps others quickly and easily identify what the family dynamics are in play with this family just from looking at that. So some of the benefits for Genogram Pro, Indiana Department of Child Services chose to use Genogram Pro because it fits a comprehensive approach of creating a family network diagram. Additionally, Genogram Pro supports the two components of the family network diagram, the genogram and the eco-map. and GenoPro will allow users to compile thorough and concise family network diagrams. So once the family case manager has completed the genogram, they're able to put that information into GenoPro using the family network diagram. So the family case manager will upload the file into our case management system, which is Magic here in Indiana. And then there's an option for both the assessment or the case to upload the file. Once that file is uploaded, it's saved as a document in the case or assessment, and the family could choose to use the family network as a subject matter and the family network diagram or genogram within the content of that when uploading all the information into Magic.
Hi, this is Mary, and I'm going to start with talking a little bit about some of the challenges that GenoPro comes with. So one of the biggest challenges in utilizing this software for the caseworker is that it can be time-consuming to complete. However, what we know is that putting in the time with families and engaging them from the beginning of the process builds that trust-based relationship that elicits a more positive experience as the case progresses. Secondly, it can require a high level of engagement skills in order to be successful. And the Department of Child Services has provided family case managers with practice questions that are located in policy to help guide their use of the family network diagram with families. These high-level engagement skills can take time for caseworkers to develop, but by providing some practice support, it can help case managers feel more confident with the execution in the field. Thirdly, if it's done incorrectly, it could create issues in critical case junctures within the case. If the diagram does not provide an accurate picture of the family's connections, then it could lead to issues when trying to find placements or potential guardianships or adoptions. This is why it's crucial to spend the time in creating an accurate family network diagram in the beginning of the case and utilize it as a tool throughout the life of the case. Lastly, all of our DCS computers have GenoPro installed. However, it can be a challenge when sharing those files with team members outside of DCS, like a CASA or service providers. If they don't have that software on their own computers, then the case manager is responsible for printing it, scanning it, and emailing it to them and to others who are working on the case. And again, it's not a constant challenge, but it can be time-consuming when that does occur. Next slide. So when we talk about risks, what we know is that it can challenge rapport building. And we found that to probably be the biggest risk in completing the family network diagrams because families could potentially get defensive when they're being asked about their family and social connections. We know it takes a lot of work and effort in order to gain the trust of our families, which is why we've built our practice model upon 4 core conditions that you see on your screen in order to work past the potential challenges and work with families. We know that the family case manager approaches a family with a family network diagram or any other case management tool with genuineness, empathy, professionalism, and respect, then their rate of success will be much higher. So in 2009, when GenoPro was introduced, staff development created a computer-assisted training, and we call them CATs, to help teach all family case managers how to use this new tool. Since the initial rollout, we've used that same computer-assisted training as part of our new worker training. New workers complete the CAT on the GenoPro tool in their local offices prior to arriving to Unit 2 of their cohort training, which is what we call new worker training in Indiana. In Unit 2, family case managers will take the engagement and interviewing course, which will lay the foundation for understanding and building their practice skills, which are crucial to creating the family network diagram. And then later in cohort training, they will complete the Assessing Child Maltreatment and Case Planning and Permanency courses, which will provide training on the specific use of the family network diagrams throughout the case. By the end of training, they're provided with opportunities to practice developing them in GenoPro, and that's most often occurs in the field during their last few weeks of the training course.
Latrice speaks.
So in Indiana, some case managers, they complete the family network diagram with pen and paper. In Indiana, our policy really requires, we highly encourage that the family network diagram, which is comprehensive of the Genopro, is really required. But it is, so the family network diagram is required, but it is not a requirement to use Genopro to complete it, although we do highly encourage our family case managers to do that. This can sometimes present a challenge later during the case if the case gets transferred or if the employee leaves the agency, as handwritten diagrams can be illegible and difficult to really interpret. This is why we support the use of Genopro in the development of these genograms so that it is clear and easy to understand for everyone involved in the case. It also allows for a digital copy of the diagram to be available, which is easier to update and adapt as the case progresses. And if you all have seen the prior example of the entire diagram, all the squiggly lines and the different lines that were on there, when persons start writing those with pen and paper, it can be very, very challenging to really understand the relationships that go back and forth within the family, which can also really hinder permanency for our children here in Indiana. So we in Indiana do have ongoing maintenance. As it was mentioned earlier, Genopro was installed on all of, and it continues to be installed on all new employees' computers. This went into effect in 2009. The last update that we had was back in 2011, and all of our technical support is provided by Genopro, which has been very helpful. So in Indiana, our current status, we are currently training and utilizing Genopro in conjunction with our practice model here in Indiana to really help achieve permanency. We've learned that the use of Genopro really enables us to understand family dynamics and to get children to permanency quicker. In the future, one of the things that we're planning to do in staff development is incorporate Genopro throughout other trainings. We currently, right now, all new trainees receive this training via a computer-assisted training, but they also incorporate it in other trainings within their new training experience. We want to expand that to include it in our experienced worker training to really highlight and really show the importance of making sure that our family case managers are utilizing those genograms through Genopro so that they can, if there are any questions from service providers or the court, that they're able to just print off a legible document and be able to submit that. It also is a primary factor in making sure that as we are moving forward with our practice model in Indiana, that the Genopro is utilized. Some of the lessons that we've learned, it really enables us to understand family dynamics better, which is a key factor, one of the key factors in children reaching permanency. Some of our future plans is to really, and I kind of talked about that a little bit, is really just expanding to include it in some of the different trainings throughout, not just new worker, but to expand it out in experienced worker training.
Presenters from the state of Indiana can be reached at the following email addresses. Latrice Thompson, email latreceThompson@dcs.in.gov. Mary Engel, email mjengle@iupui.edu. Whitney Ortiz, email witney.ortiz@ dcs.in.gov. Mary resumes.
So when we talk about challenges and risks in our practice model, one of the skills that we really encourage and push with our new workers is the engagement skill that we discussed a little bit earlier. And so just another note about that and the importance of having those foundational skills as you move forward with a software program like this, because everything we put into it is coming from the family, and that empowerment piece for them is really critical to making sure that this is accurate and that we're not damaging our relationship with the families in the process. And so really this is just part of a holistic approach to engaging and working closely with children and families through our practice model and involving them in the decisions that are made, including the decisions about placement and permanency for their children, and understanding those people that are closest to them and what their relationship look like can help us in those critical junctures. If a removal happens, if a placement change happens, if any other sort of disruption happens, we get with our team through our practice model, and then we go back to these diagrams that we've developed, and we can have some meaningful conversations about how to move forward with that and, helping families feel like they really are driving their case planning progress and their movement toward permanency.
Good afternoon. This is Melissa speaking from the Ohio SACWIS Project, and we are thrilled to be a part of this webinar sharing the recent addition of the Genogram to SACWIS functionality. To date, our county users have been quite complimentary of the new Genogram functionality. As you will soon see, while it is simple in design, it is a welcome addition to the important work being done by our child welfare caseworkers. But before Michelle shares with you the why behind Ohio's decision to implement Genogram functionality into SACWIS, I would like to offer some contextual information, or rather background, on Ohio's makeup and our SACWIS project. Ohio SACWIS began its rollout in 2007, having all 88 counties live by 2008. Ohio SACWIS serves to support the work of 88 public children's service agencies and 38 Title IV courts. The state of Ohio is rich and unique in its size, as well as the culturally diverse populations being served across the state throughout varied suburbs of large cities, farming communities, small towns, and cities. Ohio's counties range in size from major metro counties, serving populations of upwards of 800,000 or more, to medium-sized counties serving populations between 50,000 to 100,000, to our smaller counties serving populations of up to 400,000. Ohio is one of 9 states that is county administered and state supervised. So when it comes to SACWIS development of new functionality or enhancements, it is important that we are attuned to and keep in line with the pulse of our user community and the diversity that lies within our 88 counties in terms of size, cultural diversity, funding resources, training, and knowledge sharing. Next slide, please. The work of the SACWIS project is guided by our mission. The Ohio SACWIS project's mission is to provide automated technology solutions to Ohio's state and local child welfare agencies that support service delivery and practice for the safety, permanency, and well-being for children and families. The development of the Genogram functionality directly supports the project's mission in supporting the service delivery and best practice efforts of our end users in their engagement with families as important benchmarks of safety, permanency, and well-being are addressed. SACWIS's Integrated Project Team, or IPT, is a critical driving force in achieving this mission to support the end user. The IPT is comprised of dedicated business staff that are responsible for the development, implementation, maintenance, and support of Ohio SACWIS. The work and innovation of the application support team, business support team, finance team, and reporting team, in conjunction with staff from Ohio's Office of Information Services and Vendor Project, all support one another in the creation and execution of Ohio's responsive efforts to enhance Ohio SACWIS and supporting child welfare practitioners in their service delivery. It is the diligent work of the IPT in concert with input from our county users that the Genogram has come to fruition, and we are here to sharing this with you today. And so now, without further ado, I will hand things over to Michelle to talk further about Ohio's journey to Genogram.
Thank you, Melissa.
The Genogram project that we set to implement here in Ohio is really part of a much larger undertaking to streamline our relationships data entry overall. In our SACWIS system, previously our relationship data was recorded and stored separately in intake, in the case, and in the provider area where we have foster homes and kinship families. And so it was possible to have multiple different relationships between the same two persons in our system. So with the person-level relationships Genogram initiative, which was deployed to our production environment just as recently as December, we moved the relationship data to the person record and at the same time kept it accessible from various modules and work items throughout our system. So to achieve this, we had millions of existing relationship records that had to be converted, and I would say that was one of our biggest challenges. We had to develop a hierarchy and give preference to relationships associated with adoptive child birth parents. That's part of our ASCARS data. Then we had to say, well, what else would we want to maintain if we had relationships that didn't agree with each other in SACWIS, and we had to pick one. So in the end, all things being equal, we said we hoped that the most recently modified relationship would be the most accurate, and we had to go with that. But as an end result, we now have a system in which there can only be one distinct relationship pair, like biological mother and biological son, between any two people in SACWIS, which makes the data much more consistent and clean throughout the system. The only exception to that rule is in our intake record. So if you have, an abuse neglect report, that will maintain the relationships between those different parties at the time of the screening decision, since we know that relationships may change over time and we want to preserve the integrity of the initial report. So the newly designed functionality makes it easier for our end users to view and maintain their relationship information and incorporates the system-generated Genogram view of that data. Additionally, users can now document extended family relationships even if the relatives are not otherwise found in our SACWIS system. If they're not members of a SACWIS case, we can still add those extended family members and show how they are related to the families that we're working with. Our goal was to ensure accurate, consistent data across all the different areas of our system, improve our user experience, and provide additional tools for family search and engagement. Because Ohio is a county-administered state and completion of a genogram is not something that is required by our rules, use of genograms varies across the different agencies in our state. So our hope was that by incorporating this into SACWIS and making it something that can easily be generated by our system, that this would expand and support use of the tool for all the great reasons that Indiana just described as to how it can be useful for working with families. So our genogram that I'm going to demonstrate in just a moment uses the same standardized genogram symbols that our child welfare training program uses in the training of new child welfare caseworkers when talking about how to use genograms in the field. And to develop our genogram, we actually integrated GoJS software into our SACWIS system, and this was just what our project team found to be the best option for Ohio to meet our goals. And there's information about this software available online, so I'm going to show you what this looks like in just a minute. As you see on our slide here, this is a direct quote from one of our SACWIS users who has been using our system since the beginning. And when she first saw our genogram, she said this was great and that she loved it. And just as Indiana was explaining, using a genogram does require some skill. It can be time-consuming to complete in the field. And so here was a person who has been in child welfare a long time and had not wanted to use genograms in the past because they seemed complicated, but having it in SACWIS has been a game changer for her. So, give me just 1 second, and I will pull up the screen here. Okay, so this is a person record in our SACWIS system. This is a fictitious person that I created today for purposes of the demonstration in our test environment. And we have different modules. One of them is now relationships. It has its own module within the person record. So if I go to person relationships, I land on a list page that shows all the different people in SACWIS who have some relationship to our focus person, Harry. I can expand the relationships for any one of these or all of these people in the list to see how each of these people are related to my focus person, as well as how they are related to one another, if that's the case. We also have an editor view of the relationships, and if I click to my editor page, this is where I can add or maintain the relationships between people. And this is really so much simpler than the old way that we had of doing this work in our system. And so users really do find this to be much more straightforward and simple, and they're better able to avoid making mistakes when setting up the relationship. So it's a simple drop-down with relationship values to select, and the reciprocal relationships are automatically generated when a relationship is saved. We also have the ability with an add button right from here to add additional people by searching through SACWIS to pull in others or create brand new people if they're not found in our system for the purpose of documenting their relationships. So this has been a good help to users, and this functionality is actually replicated in various areas in the system. As I mentioned earlier, all the relationships live within the person record, if you will, but they are accessible in our intake module, as well as when you're looking at your family case record. You can access the same information in the same format, but the context in the case limits that information to those folks who are associated with that case as members or even as associated relatives who may not be members of the case family that you're working with, but perhaps grandparents or other supportive persons who have some involvement. Now to the genogram, which is the real reason we came here today. Just a simple click on the genogram icon, and the system renders all the relationship information in the form of a simple genogram. So as I said earlier, we do use the same basic genogram symbols that workers are trained on. There's a legend here at the bottom of the screen that shows what the different symbols mean. We also incorporated some view of person characteristics that may have been added to a record, and by color and placement of the shading, we can give you a high-level view of where some of those attributes may exist within the family. It's a little hard to see. It's kind of light on my screen here, but we do have like a yellow highlight around my focus person who is Harry, and whoever I have in focus, on the right I have this box that shows a person spotlight, and we give just some basic information about the person as well as some of those characteristics I mentioned. So if we have any mental health or substance abuse characteristics that have been documented or any medical concerns, those can be shown, and you can get kind of an overview of the family as far as those things. So I can change my focus person. If I want to look at Harry's mother instead, I can just click on that person and change my person's spotlight information here on the right to showing me some information about her. You'll see on this person I've also added a safety hazard, which in our system is a way to track hazards that might exist for the caseworker's own safety. So things that you'd want to call attention to, such as if this is a person who has weapons in the home, that's something a new worker might want to know when going out. So we just highlight some of those things. And that's our genogram. And we did incorporate a couple of screenshots of the genogram in the slide presentation, so you'll have those for reference. And that's it for us. I'll turn it back over. Thank you.
All right. So here we come. Next slide. Next slide. Next. All right. So here is Mr. Bullock's contact information if anyone who is attending would like to contact him directly, and we also previously provided Indiana's contact info. So,
Kevin Bullock, Bureau Chief, Ohio Department of Job and Family Services, Automated Systems. Phone number 614-397-8910. Email kevin.bullock@jfs.ohio.gov.
let's move on then. And that was absolutely excellent. Thank you so very much. Let's move to the next slide, which is our Q&A session. And I am going to ask my colleague, Sabera, to run this session. Sabera?
Thanks, Joyce. Just as a reminder, the PowerPoint is available as a handout. It's available on the right side of your screen. If you click on Handouts, you can download it for viewing. Candy, do we have any questions in the queue?
Thank you. As a reminder for parties on the phone, to ask a question, press *1. Please unmute your line and record your name only to be introduced. Again, questions from the phone, press *1, please. If you'd like to withdraw the request, you may press *2. Thank you. Please stand by for your first question.
Candy, do we have any questions in the queue?
Currently, we're showing no questions in the queue. As a reminder, parties may press *1.
Okay. I will start with the questions we're getting through the chat box. First question, does the Indiana team know how much the state spends per year to use the Genogram Pro tool?
Latrice answers.
No, I do not know the exact cost. I know that when it was initially installed, it was at a one-time cost, but I'm not quite sure of the cost at this time.
Thank you. Next question. Is the software integrated within the SACWIS used by Indiana, or do staff have to re-enter all of the participant data when creating the genogram?
Whitney answers.
What was the first part of that question? Sorry.
Is the software integrated within the SACWIS used by Indiana, or do staff have to re-enter all of the participant data when creating the genogram?
We enter it into Genogram Pro, and then from there, they're able to upload that into our computer system.
This is Joyce, and I have a follow-on question to that. And given that Genogram Pro is not integrated into your SACWIS system, what and who triggers the Genogram Pro family network diagram upload into Magic, and how often does it occur?
So technically on every case, whether that's a child in need of services case where the courts are involved or an informal adjustment, all of those cases are required to have a genogram in them at the time of case transfer from the assessment worker to the permanency worker. So ideally, all of them would have them as far as Genogram Pro is concerned.
Okay.
Okay. Candy, do we have any questions in the queue before we move on to the next one in the chat box?
We're currently showing no questions from the phone. As a reminder, parties again can press *1.
Thank you. Next question. Does the Ohio team have an estimate for the cost of building the genogram functionality?
Kevin responds.
That would That included both the relationship conversion and the genogram, so it's kind of difficult, I think, for us to split it out to say exactly how much just the genogram cost. So that was part of our contract with our interval deliverable agreement with our vendor.
Thank you. Does either state have outcome information? Has this been helpful in finding relative placements for kids in care?
Whitney answers.
I know in Indiana, once those are actually completed, I think that, I don't know if there's necessarily been any sort of formalized data, but within the local county offices, the cases who have a really solid completed genogram and eco-map through Genogram Pro, that family network diagram, helps us utilize, figuring out what the underlying need for the families are, figuring out people who could be potential placement, and just really working with the family so we can work with them really from the inception of the case so we have case closure faster.
Melissa responds.
So as far as Ohio, our genogram functionality has only been in about 2 months, so we don't have a lot of feedback yet as far as, what impact that may have. But we do hope that we'll find more county agencies utilizing a genogram, because we know that there are many agencies who do use the genogram as part of their regular practice. And we're just hoping that this will maybe make their lives a little easier as well as kind of expand that use.
Thank you. I will move on to the next question. Does Genogram Pro work on a specific operating system, or is it available for multiple platforms?
Yeah.
Can you repeat that question?
Does Genogram Pro work on a specific operating system, or is it available for multiple platforms?
Latrice answers.
So in Indiana, Genogram Pro, it is automatically, our IT team automatically uploads the program on every family case manager's computer. And so that's where they use it, and that's where they, put all the information in. And they don't use it on any other equipment.
Mary speaks.
And the computers that are delivered to our staff members are all Microsoft operating systems utilizing, Windows. I don't know what the current version of Windows is for that, but so we've not experimented, at least to my knowledge, with Apple systems or anything else. And so right now we're just looking at the Windows systems.
Thank you. Candy, do we have any questions in the queue?
We're showing no questions. Again, it's *1 for questions, please.
Thank you. I will move on to the next question in the chat box. Do staff in your states have tablets or laptops to engage families in the field?
Latrice speaks.
So in Indiana, our staff do have laptops.
Kevin responds.
In Ohio, with us being county administered, it depends on the county, but many of our county children's services agencies do deploy some sort of mobile device, and we know that all platforms they're using all platforms to access our application.
Thank you. I will move on to the next question. How do either of the states address Native American history for the purposes of ICWA?
Melissa responds.
Or ITWA.
Yes, we do have functionality incorporated within our person module to capture we document that the family was asked about their Native American heritage. We also document notification. We can generate notification to the tribes from within SACWIS, as well as documentation of the outcome, whether or not the membership was verified. So we do have all of that information. Our genogram does not currently display that information, but that is something that we may consider as future enhancement, incorporating other demographics into our genogram.
Whitney answers.
And then as far as Indiana is concerned, so there's not anything specifically with ICWA. I mean, we obviously follow all of those guidelines and procedures, but within GenoPro, you can put different ethnicities, cultures, and other things that they might identify with just them singularly, but also if you want to use it as an eco map, also that can be included. So we can put all of that information into GenoPro.
Okay, thank you. I will move on to the next question. Is the software linked with any person locator tools, example, Clear, Accurate, for easy linking of family members and demographic information to cases?
Whitney answers.
So in Indiana, GenoPro system is not linked. However, once you upload the family network diagram into Magic, you will link it to the children, whoever's actually in that. So you would be able to then, in theory, once those are uploaded, have every single person connected within our overall system of Magic.
Kevin responds.
And in Ohio, our SACWIS application is not currently linked to a parent locator.
Thank you. Next question is for Indiana. When the file is uploaded from GenoPro into your SACWIS, it's done as a PDF or other file and placed into a file cabinet, or is the data actually integrated at the database level?
Whitney answers.
So it's integrated at the database level, so it goes into our computing system, so it's casebook, and so when it's uploaded into there, it stays within that. So it's not ever a hard copy. Everything's electronically stored within our system.
Thank you for the answer. I'll move on to the next question. Can you get statistics from the Genogram software? For example, how many parents are married at time of birth?
Melissa responds.
We do capture that data element elsewhere in the person record, but we do not pull it from our genogram. We've had that as existing functionality.
Yeah, Indiana would be the same on that. That would be within our database, the casebook, but not necessarily GenoPro collecting any additional information.
Thank you. Next question. Since the last update was reported in 2011, how effective is the system for staff?
So it's a really extremely effective tool when utilized. So even though the information hasn't necessarily been updated, it still has all of those relationships, so social and emotional relationships, and there's, I mean, give or take 20 to 30 different options as far as like different levels of connectedness emotionally. You can also put health issues. So there's a myriad of different things that you can put into the GenoPro for the family network diagram. So it's been, even though it hasn't been updated, it's still very useful.
Okay, thank you. Next question for Ohio. Did Ohio use any open source software to implement Genogram?
No, it's all Java-based, integrated with our existing application, and as mentioned, we did use the GoJS as a part of a toolkit to help with the rendering.
I do have another question for Ohio, and you may be able to answer this along with the answer you provided. Did Ohio develop their Genogram in-house?
Yes, that was custom built to integrate with our existing application.
Okay, thank you. Candy, do we have any questions in the queue?
We're showing no questions at this time. Again, from the phone, you may press *1.
Thank you. I will move on to the next question. What was the biggest challenge of getting workers to create and fill out a genogram, and how did you address it?
So in Indiana, the biggest challenge isn't necessarily having them complete a genogram. It's just taking that additional step to actually put everything into GenoPro. So I know that right now within our training process, for new family case managers, we want them to utilize that. So we're showing it to them within their on-job training, and then also within our engagement skills, we're trying to pull the Genogram and Genogram Pro into that as well.
Melissa responds.
And in Ohio, there is training available to encourage the use of genograms and to, help workers understand how this can have a positive impact on their work, but it is not something that's currently required for every case. That's more of an agency-to-agency policy.
Thank you. I move on to the next question. It's for Ohio. How long did it take to build the functionality in Ohio?
Well, from the point of beginning design sessions to implementation was about a year.
Again, that incorporated the person-level relationship conversion, so there's a lot of time invested in that as well. So.
Okay. Thank you. I do have a related question. If a state wanted to obtain Ohio's Genogram code, is the state willing to share it on the federal repository when it becomes available?
Yes, we are.
Okay, thank you. I will move on to the next question. Is data entered into the Genogram software stored in the database for the main case management system, MAGIC or SACWIS?
Can you repeat that question?
Is data entered into the Genogram software stored in the database for the main case management system?
Yes, in Indiana it is.
In Ohio, we're actually using the SACWIS data to create the Genogram, and users can download a PDF of the image, but unfortunately at this time they're not able to save a point-in-time rendering of the Genogram in our system, but that is something that we hope to change in the future.
Okay, thank you. Candy, do we have any questions in the queue?
We're currently showing no questions.
As a reminder, you can type the questions in the chat box or press *1 to ask the question.
So this is Joyce, and I have a question. My assumption is that you actually share the family relationship or family network diagrams with your families. Is that correct?
I think so in Indiana, in part, yes. So the actual family network diagram is something that the family case manager and the family develop together. As far as seeing what the finalized actual picture would look like, no, but I think all of those conversations are discussed verbally.
Okay, thank you. For Indiana, does the state provide Genogram Pro licensing and software to CASA or your other service providers?
No, we do not.
Okay.
Candy, do we have any questions in the queue?
We are showing no questions from the phone. Again, parties may press *1.
If you would like to ask a question, you can type it in the chat box or press *1.
So while we're awaiting any other additional questions that may come in, I would like to circle back to both states and to your teams. As we have walked through this, is there any other key information that you may like to share with states? Indiana?
Mary speaks.
I think, as I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of importance around engagement skills, and so it's not really a tool that you should just go out and start asking intrusive questions without having established some rapport first. It can give us a lot of information that's helpful at critical junctures and looking for placement and discussing those family relationships.
If they're changed, if relationships get stronger or amended, we can definitely update the Genogram Pro and put that new information in there. But you've got to take that first step and build rapport and a trust-based relationship, because the information you enter is obviously only as good as what our families give us. And, as we know in working in child welfare, we often deal with families that have a lot of conflicted relationships and difficult relationships and may not want to share that information with us right away. It also goes to engaging fathers and how we approach parents and family members in gathering that information and help them understand the point of it, that we're not trying to necessarily invade their lives in every single way, but that this really gives us an opportunity to help work with them on placement and permanency for their children. And so that first step, I think, is really critical. Excellent. Ohio?
The only thing I'd like to add, I mentioned that we would share our code on the federal repository, but if anybody has a more immediate need, they can send me an email. We can, we can work through our process, but that could happen sooner if it's needed.
And Kevin, your code is Java based, right?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Sabera, do we have any more questions?
There are no questions in the chat box. Candy, do we have any questions in the queue?
We're showing no questions from the phone. As a reminder, parties may press *1.
Okay, well, let's move on to the next slide, please. And I certainly want to thank our presentation teams from both Ohio and Indiana. That was absolutely excellent, and I wouldn't be surprised if you get some questions sent directly to you. So thank you so very much. So this webinar has been recorded and will be made available online. When it is completed and posted, a message will be sent announcing availability on the Children's Bureau website. And as a reminder, you can download the PowerPoint by clicking on the handouts on the right-hand side in the little box. So, again, thank you to our state presenters. And as we move forward with the series, the next confirmed upcoming event is on March 14th, a discussion of the DSS online resources available to you, which is basically a demo of the Agile online resources and the DSS website. So I want to extend a sincere thank you to you all for attending, and that ends the webinar for today. Goodbye.